Going to call to meeting the Inland Wetlands and Watercourse Agency for Tuesday, March 6th, 2012. It's about 7:04 PM. And if we could have roll call, please.
Sure. Joe Marie Nelson. Joe Perello.
Present.
Brian Peruta here. Jill Kravitz.
Here.
Ooh. Joe Albert. Roby Staples.
Here.
John Unghire. That's it.
Thank you. And if we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And for the executive session, we have any matters regarding employees or pending litigation. There's nothing for the executive session.
I believe so.
And for public participation, is there anybody who would like to join as public participation for this evening? Sensing none, we'll go on to correspondence, the Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission actions, and the Clear newsletter came in our packet. Any discussion on the Planning and Zoning meeting or the Clear newsletter that we received?
I don't, no.
None, Joe? Brian? Roby? Okay. The commission's correspondence, any updates on any site visits?
No, ma'am.
Brian?
No, none at all. Nothing.
Roby?
Nope.
And I have none either. And the next item on agenda is the approval of the minutes from February 21st, 2012. I'd like to add that we need to make a change to the meeting minutes as Jennifer Jansera was not absent. She is no longer a member of the Inland Wetlands Watercourse Agency. So if we could make that change to the meeting minutes for approval. And does anybody wish to add any other changes to the meeting?
No.
No, ma'am.
Okay. Do we have a motion to accept the minutes with the proposed change?
I'll make a motion that we accept them as, with that change, that Sarah's name be omitted.
Do we have a second?
A second.
And do we have a vote? All in favor?
I wasn't-
Well, you have 3 in
Yeah.
favor and 1 abstained.
Yeah.
And the wetland agents report, please.
Before we
Oh,
have to
sorry.
sit Joe
Oh, that's right.
as an
Sorry,
alternate.
you're right. Thank you very much, Brian. And before we go on, I'd like to please sit Joe Perello as a full voting member this evening. Thank you. And I don't think we need to vote. I'm just going to sit him as a voting member. Thank you.
Okay, good evening. At last meeting, you had asked me to follow up on Inland Wetlands Application 529, which is Marshall and Nancy Butler. It was a request that they had a permit to remove some deposited material that was dumped in their backyard. This started back in, I believe, 2006 was the first. I'm sorry, 2009 was when first it was a violation, and then it went on to become a permit. I went out there back on the 23rd of February, spoke with Mr. Butler. A lot of the material, a lot of the wood material was removed. The slope was stabilized. The piles were all knocked down. There was a good stand of vegetation. There was nothing encroaching on the channel itself. It looked very similar to what was upstream and downstream of his property. And if you've seen the package that you have, I took some pictures, and you can see that for yourself. There was one pile of brush there along the slope. To me, the vegetation is pretty established through there. Going through the permit, most of the conditions have been met. And I think the only one that I can see that hasn't was number 15, which is a copy of an as-built plan with topography certified to T2 accuracy submitted to the agency upon completion of the project to ensure compliance with the approval. As far as I know, that hasn't been done. So at this point, I'd like to get your feedback on how you want me to proceed with this. I did talk to Mr. Butler about putting some conservation mix on the slope, leaving maybe a 10-foot buffer at the top of the slope unmowed to create more of a barrier between his yard and the slope. That I think would have two benefits to it. One, it would help stabilize it, and also it kind of make a barrier between his property and the slope to kind of distract from going any further and mowing too close. So if that was something that the board thought was appropriate, we could put that in writing and present that to him, as well as any other conditions that you want to see him meet before we close this out.
Any questions from the agents?
Yeah.
Brian?
So as I'm looking at the pictures, the very first picture looks like the slope is covered with brush. It may be the quality of the pictures, but when you were looking at it, what did it look like out there?
Yeah, that one section was brush, and the rest of the slope, this was off to the side, and I think it's the same brush. Maybe he may have added to it as this brush you'll see in the older pictures. There was always a pile of something there.
So,
Do you have your microphone?
yeah, the mic's on, yeah. Yeah, because I'm looking at the page 2 in the top picture, and it looks like the whole section is all brushed. Or is that vegetation? I really can't tell.
There's brush there. And that wasn't where he had deposited the soil. You'll see the soil has been spread out, I guess, closer to you in that picture. And to me, that was left untouched. And maybe he did put some more brush there. I don't know the timing of when it came from and whatnot.
All right. I don't even know what to say about it. It looks like it's still with brush covering the slope, which is not typically a good thing. Brush leaves things like that. Vegetation is good, right? So it would seem like that would be an area of concern. I wouldn't be opposed to the condition with, or at least to having him put the seed mix down and then keep a buffer so you can sheet more of that water down that hill and actually filter it a little bit. But all that brush bothers me a lot down there. Although, I don't know what we can really do about it right now, to tell you the truth.
Yeah. And underneath the brush, I think is a lot steeper slope than where he's pushed the soil in. That area was left untouched. And unfortunately, it's very similar to what is upstream and downstream of his property. And if you continue looking up the picture there, it's not any different than
All right.
what's there now.
So is your recommendation just to have him where the soil was moved and displaced and cleaned up and seed mix down, buffer at the top, up to 10 feet? That's about it. That'll make it whole right now.
Yeah, it is stable. There was no sign of erosion. There was no reeling, no sign of movement. He did ask if he could add a little bit of topsoil to the top to create a base to grow grass, and I said, well, we can do that. We have to talk to the commission about that. I'm sorry, the agency. But if we do add any topsoil, we'll put grass only up to a certain point, and then some kind of a conservation mix, which you wouldn't mow, and it would get 2 or 3 feet high, or maybe mow it once a year, and that would deter you from going out there, and it would be good for the slope as well. And he was very open to that. So.
All right. Yeah, if this is the best we can get, that's the best we can get, I guess. Okay, I'm good.
I just have a question. We were discussing at the last meeting some of the debris or brush or things that are in a slope already that's been there for a significant amount of time. You were mentioning how sometimes that becomes a natural factor in, a culvert. and drainage. So if you look at page 2 of 4, where you can see a lot of the, it's not brush anymore, it's actually debris. It looks like wooden pieces of old structures. So removal of that would actually cause, is this correct, would actually cause more of a situation of erosion? and
I'm
flooding?
sorry, yeah, my part didn't explain the pictures very well. The first 3 pages are the pictures I took recently in February 23rd, and 1 through 4 are back from 10/20/2009.
Oh, excellent.
Those were
Okay,
the
very
before
good.
pictures.
So,
All that's been cleaned up. Those pieces I did not see. I didn't see any
Okay.
kind of wood or metal or any of those
excellent.
debris.
And the erosion or any type of flooding or any more water flow going through there has not increased or anything since then that you know of?
No, there was a concern about a tree that was going across the valley, and unfortunately, if you look up and down the valley, because of the last storms we had, the entire valley is covered with trees. Both the way,
And that's actually natural occurrence, really?
the one tree that was down that was pointed out in the previous reports doesn't look that much out of place anymore, and
Okay.
that's my observation.
Looks like it's right on top of the, those trees look like, 3 or 4, looks like it's right on top of the pipe.
Yeah, back in 2000 and,
I think that
now-
was
Now
that's
the trees aren't there?
Right, that pipe is just a piece of pipe. That's not an actual.
Oh, it wasn't a man-made?
That was just something that was
Oh,
dumped
I
there, I
see.
believe. Yeah.
That's it.
So do we wish there to be any further action taking, or are we satisfied with this?
I guess that would be my question. Now, what's next? So this was a bit of a violation. You talked about contractor seed, or the seed mix down and a buffer. How do we document that? Because this wasn't a wetlands application. So there'd have to be some agreement drawn up between the town and
Yeah.
and the homeowner, and if that's done and the town attorney thinks or whoever's going to look at it thinks that's a good idea, that covers us. So I would think we just need to have some mechanism to be able to do that with them in place, so it's more than a handshake. Other than that, that would sound pretty reasonable, and this guy's getting off, pretty decent, so.
Yeah. Should that letter come from myself, or from the agency, or from the town's attorney at this point?
The letter in regards to making sure that he has that buffer of
We'll call it
non-mode.
a closeout, items to be addressed in order to close this out.
Sorry. I think it should come from yourself first.
Okay.
And then if we have to take it further, then at that point, we could take the action.
Okay. Then I'll draft that letter and send it to him. Should I bring it to the next meeting first before we send it out, or?
Yeah, I think it might be a good idea.
Okay.
If you read it to us
I agree.
first.
Yeah,
then-
two,
agree.
2 more weeks isn't going to make any
Right.
difference there,
Absolutely, it's been
unfortunately.
years.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anything else in regards to your report?
Nope, that's it for Wetlands Agents Report.
Okay, for old business, the inland wetlands application 550, Hazardville Water Company drainage, swale relocation, and associated cuts and fills. Work required by the DPH consent order number 11-049-08, proposed activity within a watercourse and regulated area at 7A Kimberly Drive, map 86, lot 69, submitted 1/27/12, received 2/7/12, PPE 221, MAD 4/13/12. We're not going to take any action on that this evening. The Hazardville Water Company is not here this evening and has asked for some time to speak with, if I'm correct, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, to speak with the council and some engineers in regards to.
Yeah, the correspondence that I received was that they wanted some more time to work on revising the drawings, and that they would submit those, before the next meeting, and that they want to be heard.
And they're still within
Yep.
their right for
Yeah,
the timeframe?
Yeah, our mandated date is 4/13, so they have 2 more meetings. They have
Okay.
the 20th, and then the 3rd, I believe, is the next meeting.
Okay. Brian?
I understand the Hazardville Water and our deputy DPW guy, Bill. Bill, I talked to the town manager today, just made a real quick call and asked him if he had considered any options, and he said he had turned it over to whoever the acting deputy of Public Works is, Bill something, Bill Elliott?
Taylor. Billy
Taylor, okay, yeah. So I know that they were getting together, as the Hazardville Water fellow said, he'd like to work with the town and see if there's some options there. So I figured I'd throw that out there, so I'm not the only one who knows it.
Excellent. Thank you. Anyone else? Second agenda on old business is the inland wetlands application number 456-02, Carl Nelson Construction Incorporated. Modification of approved permit of number 456 dated March 8th, 2006, to remove approval condition number 17, requirement of a 6-foot-high fence at 215 High State Street, map number 35, lot 250, submitted 2/1/2012, received 2/7/2012, PPE 2/21/12, and MAD 4/13/12. And I believe we have the applicant, Mr. Nelson, here. Would you like to speak?
Good evening. I'm Carl Nelson from Carl Nelson Construction. We subdivided a piece of property on State Street back in '06, and the westerly lot, we had a requirement of putting up a 6-foot fence behind it to protect the slope, and I was looking to have that requirement removed. I don't really see a need for it. I haven't seen it done anywhere else. I guess if you have any questions that I can answer, I will try to.
Any questions from the agents? Brian?
Yeah, Carl, I went out and took a look at the property. So when, just as sort of as a refresher, when Jose was saying we have the little emblems up to say it's a conservation easement back there, and typically, and I won't put words in Jose's mouth, but what he was indicating is that's good enough to let people know there's an easement and there's things you can't do back there. Is that your phone? Might be your phone. I don't understand why the fence was there, other than I can only guess that the condition was there just to keep people from throwing things down the bank, from down the escarpments, both on the side and behind, which is, it's fairly steep. A 6-foot fence seems kind of outrageous to me. But you mentioned when you came in last time that it was due to the economic conditions. It wasn't, that was one of your drivers here, right? One of the reasons you didn't want.
Well, yeah, I don't want to spend the money on a fence because I don't see a need for it. I mean,
There seems to be some need, though, to have some delineation, in my opinion. It's just my opinion. Some need to have some delineation back there, what's the easement, what's not. And again, my opinion is those little round things don't really do it. I think the homeowner, just as an example, is actually draining the downspout down the slope. So there's a black pipe that goes across the front and down the slope. So obviously, the people who live there don't understand that conservation easement means you shouldn't do that. So I think those are relatively ineffective. I mean, it says something, but, they're going to come off the trees. I don't think a 6-foot fence is necessary, but something is needed back there to give some delineation of what that really is, and it keeps people from doing things to and on that slope, including draining water. So perhaps on your next trip out, you may want to have the homeowner just kind of remove that.
yeah,
that drainage
actually, I
pipe out of it.
still own the property. We haven't.
Oh, okay.
Haven't been able to sell it, so I have a tenant there now.
Okay.
So
You're actually draining the roof down the slope, probably to the south, probably?
yeah, I'll go in and
Yeah,
check it, yeah.
that's one of the things. That's what these conservation easements, we can't do that. That's really not a good idea. I understand you're planting grass, so what you didn't want to do is, have it.
Right, have it wash out there.
Wash out
Well, the
all year
grass,
long, right.
hopefully is established some now.
Right, so that's just an example why that little conservation easement, those little things they poke up on the trees, they don't do much, other than there's this little white thing that's going to fade away and no one's going to know what they are. So we got to find some way of putting an easement. A 6-foot fence, I think, is unreasonable, although I won't, maybe the other commission thought it was a good idea. But we need something there. So if you have some alternatives, I'd be willing to consider it. But I don't think, to me, personally, nothing is not an alternative. So that's just me. What do you guys think?
I'm not disagreeing with you totally. But, no, but I mean, I asked Jose, who works for the town, if this was even within our realm, and he said it was not.
Oh, absolutely it is.
No, it's not, because how is this different, Brian, than the last meeting that we had with the water company? And I was worried about the man's driveway getting all beat up, and they said, that's not up to you.
The conservation easement was probably, it had something to do with the conditions, and I don't have the application in front of me, but if we look at some of the things we did in the past, including the villages down on the end of Simon Road, the conservation easement was absolutely what was all within our jurisdiction, and that's what we spent the most time on. You were here. Remember the slopes, the delineation of the slopes, where the Welty line was, that whole deal. So
Yeah, but we can't make him put up a fence.
But as a condition of a past application,
Yeah, let me just
Doing
add that was a line item of his approval. That it was required by the former wetland agency as a condition of his approval was to install the 6-foot fence. That was a condition of his approval.
I believe that was. The wording is a little different. We, as a commission, asked if the contractor or whatever would consider putting a fence for safety or people throwing items over the fence, down the escarpment. We have another project right here in town where we approved, and there was a fence, and the guy took it out. Now there's no fence, and it's very dangerous. But we don't have that, I don't think we have that authority to make him put a fence. That's up to whoever. But we approved the project, and we had asked him at that time if he would mind putting a fence because it would help, because they just cleaned it up. This is where the car wash is and that project down in back there.
no. Oh, really? There was a fence?
Yeah, there was a fence there, and it was taken away. Now, if you go over there, it's like 2 feet from the blacktop. You can go down the escarpment, totally. And there's no fence at all. So I don't believe it's in our jurisdiction to tell you you have to put a fence. Now, I'm not sure about the conservation stickers, how far that gives you, and if that is one of the conditions that makes them put a fence or not. But we should check those minutes of that meeting, and unless you have them.
I don't have them with me, but I'm fairly confident that the condition to put the fence, the requirement to put the fence up was a requirement of the existing wetland application. And what Mr. Nelson is doing now has come into this agency to request a modification of that wetlands permit. So what we're discussing today is whether or not this agency wishes to modify his requirements of the 6-foot fence.
Well, I'm not sure if that's under our jurisdiction or not, but I'm pretty sure that we don't have that authority to tell you to do that.
Oh, God, I think we do. Oops, I think we do, because I think, I keep going back to the villages, and when we did that there, we were making them do something special back there. It wasn't a 6-foot fence, but it was a type of, kind of a post and beam kind of deal, like you would see at a
But
park. So.
I think we asked, and he was agreeable to put a small something.
But it was a part of our conditions, so.
Well, I don't know about that.
Unless this application is modified from a vote from this agency, then the existing conditions will have to be met. And so it does fall on this agency to either accept or deny his request to modify the approved permit.
But that's a residential area there, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. So if
should
we don't
modify.
vote on it, or if we just say it's got to stay as is, that means he's got to put up a 6-foot-high chain link fence. Does he have to put razor wire on top too, or, you know?
That was not part of the
Okay.
approval, but.
Okay.
I believe we do have to vote on whether or not we'll allow him not to have the chain link fence or not. And what you're asking for is to not have that. We discussed at the last meeting that there are other houses in the area that weren't required when the subdivision was put in to have that chain link fence. And we discussed, and Brian brought up the fact of maybe if we could have some kind of post and a minimal type of thing just to show the people, and if that there is a separation to an embankment that's there, and as the homeowner that you're renting to, if we could ask you to, if we can put this in a stipulation that you don't allow them to take the drain off water from their roof or wherever from their eaves troughs and drain it to the culvert behind that. Maybe if we could ask for modification of it to, instead of the 6-foot chain link fence, to have some type of barrier just to show that there is the drop off and that, you can't just start dumping or draining things into that area.
I'll make sure the drain pipe is removed, but if I put a fence there, there would be a barrier there, but on either side of it, there's no
And we
requirement
discussed
for
that
them.
last time.
And
Right.
I don't see what function this is going to have when you could go to either side of it and go down the hill or throw things down the hill. I don't see it seems like a useless item to put a fence there when there's nothing on either side of it.
Is there something else in the condition that states that there's no dumping down that area?
Yeah, there is, I don't remember how it's worded, but there's, not supposed to be any grass clippings or leaves dumped in there, and the conservation easement signs are along the,
Well, as long as that's
along
in
the
the,
whole border.
as long as that's in the minutes and it's in your stipulation, I think we're covered. And whoever buys the house or you rent it to the house, we're covered on that now, as long as they don't dump anything down there. If you own it, you're responsible. If someone else owns it, they're responsible.
I think part of the responsibility, though, of the inland wetlands is not only to protect the water, but to also protect the homeowner and to protect the property. So I just worry about that, if they don't dump, that's fine, but if they fall off the end of a culvert or that there is sufficient or significant erosion, then it's going to encroach on the property. So say if you've sold the house, I mean, what's to say that that's not going to happen too? So I mean, what do you propose that you would do if you didn't have a 6-foot fence there?
Well, we've owned the property for 6 years, and the slope hasn't changed at all in the back in the time we've been there. And it's the same slope across. If you looked at it, I don't know if you went further along, the slope is the same behind the other houses there, or the vacant lot next to it and the other two houses. The slope, it's the same all the way through there. So singling this house out for a fence doesn't seem right.
But isn't, Carl, and, 'cause so when I walked out in the vacant lot next door, right? And that's going to be another buildable lot, right?
That is.
Another approved lot,
That is
right?
another buildable lot.
And it seems like the one that you've built is tucked in real tight in that corner there. So the proximity, I think I can understand why maybe a former commission wanted to do this, because it is so tight in that corner, and your distance from the back of the house to the escarpment and your distance from the side of the house to the escarpment is going to be much less than it is anywhere else. So I can understand why they do it, why they probably thought that was a good idea. I mean, I think a 6-foot fence is a little extreme, if you're asking me. I'd be in favor of a modification, but I don't think it's an all or nothing. That's where my head is on this. So if there's something else, some alternatives you can come up with that are feasible, that meet our requirement, saying that it's going to be a clear delineation that's not those little round discs, because those are going to go away fast. Those disappear. Those never show up. If there's some other way to delineate it that makes it very visible, And so people understand that there's not something they can do behind that. I'm fine with that. I understand a 6-foot fence is, and if you're a homeowner there, it's going to look pretty stupid, by the way. So aesthetically, which isn't our jurisdiction, aesthetically, it's going to look dumb. But there's got to be something else back there, I think, on the side and the back. And you know, if you asked me, I would think on the other property to be worth it too. But if that's already been approved and there's other conditions, there's not much I can do about that. But while you're sitting here and we're deliberating about this one, I am willing to, I don't know about you guys, but I'm willing to consider alternatives. So a modification, yes, but not an all or nothing modification saying no 6-foot fence. There's got to be something there. So if you can get creative and come up with something that's better, that meets our requirements, which is delineation, visible, yeah, I'm good with that. So I don't know what that would be.
Yeah, I guess I would have to, think about it or do some research to see what
Yeah, I
would
don't
be,
think it would-
would be a better solution.
Yeah, but I think a 6-foot fence is kind of excessive.
Yeah.
And you're right, we don't do 6-foot fences anywhere. As a matter of fact, I thought you needed special permits to put a 6-foot fence up anywhere on a residential property, so.
Absolutely, that's why it's not in our jurisdiction.
But putting up something to delineate is in our jurisdiction to protect the slopes. We've done it before. If we did it before and it's not in our jurisdiction, then we did it wrong, so. I'm
I
just trying
think
to be
we've
consistent.
I think we've asked the applicant to come up with something and show us,
But it was
but
in the.
not as a condition.
Not as specific, but as a condition, we told them they needed something there, and they agreed to what was going to be put there, so. I just want to be consistent, that's all I want to do.
Well, we're not consistent because the other pieces don't have one either.
I can't,
You know,
I can't.
and if
touch
we
that.
have one in the middle, then we're gonna have to go after these other people and say, well, you gotta put up a fence now, or whatever he does.
And just to
That's not fair.
add, again, that the previous agency put this in the conditions. For whatever reason they did.
Right.
They did. And that it stands today. And what we have in front of us is Mr. Nelson's request to modify that condition. And that's what we're here to talk about, whether or not we feel this could be modified. Mr. Nelson can consider some other options or ask us to
Go as is, yeah.
go as is and decide tonight. That's his call.
Well, for 6 years, it's been stabilized, right? That's what you're saying?
There hasn't been any change.
Hasn't been
there
any
at all.
shed at all. So what's your,
Well, I don't think the fence has anything to do with the stabilization of the slope.
Yeah.
The fence isn't going to,
it's only gonna deter people from
Yeah.
dumping. And there's no dumping over there, right?
There hasn't been anything since we've owned it.
That's not
There
to
hasn't-
say it wouldn't be like that if you
Right.
get, you sell a house and then everybody else, you can't control what they do. But if you put that in your deed, no dumping in back of the,
I believe it has to go in the deeds when they're.
You know,
yeah,
if
the
that's in
deeds
there
already have a
already-
conservation easement attached to them. All the drawings have that standard language about no dumping, no clippings, no activity back there. It is documented, exactly like every other parcel in town that has a similar easement.
I just think that fence was unjust to put that in there as a condition. That wasn't right.
You're saying it's documented as similar other properties that don't have a requirement of a 6-foot fence?
Yeah, so the other properties, like the other three on the subdivision have the same exact language for conservation easement and what you can and can't do and within that easement. So that's very similar to just those three properties next to it.
Okay.
This one in particular has a requirement of a fence.
All right, any further discussion?
So if we have, if they have that, why can't we just give him that as a condition?
Okay, so would we like
Moving on to
to
the
make a
condition.
motion to approve his removal of the condition of the 6-foot high fence? Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Am I allowed to say, I can't second
I think
that.
you can do that.
I will second that motion.
And just for discussion.
You want
I-
further
I-
discussion?
I still think that there needs to be alternatives versus just taking it, so I don't think it's an all or nothing, so it'd be really tough to support it without some extra look at what can we do. And I do think a 6-foot fence is unreasonable, but if it's an all or nothing kind of deal, I can't support it right now.
Okay. We did add the further discussion afterwards, so if we still want to make the motion for.
motion's been
the
made.
Motion's already made,
motion-
so-
okay, the
Motion's
motion's
made.
been
It's
made, and
done.
it's been seconded. So let's take the vote as to whether or not we will allow IW number 456-02 to be modified to remove the condition of the 6-foot-high fence at 215 State Street. I would like to see the vote. All in favor? 3 for and 1 opposed.
Yes, I would be the opposed.
Oh, I didn't ask you if you were abstaining.
quite all
I'm
right.
sorry. Thank
We
you.
got
We understood
count
that.
Sounds like you're good then.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And new business. We have new
Yeah,
business?
there's none,
There's no new business.
no new business.
Next on the agenda, new applications to be received. Do you have one here?
Yes, we have one new application to be received. Application DPN 2012-22-02. This is an application that came in from a gentleman who wants to remove part of an existing foundation and rebuild it and add an additional deck. This is a lakefront property. The reason why I took it in as a DPN is, at the time, being the new guy on the block, I didn't know that there was similar projects like that in the area. The 2 doors down, there was a very similar application came in, which was handled as a administrative approval. So at this point, what I've done is we've accepted it as a determination of permit need. And so that's what you have in front of you is, do we need to continue this as a full-fledged wetlands permit, or can it be handled through administrative approval? And what it is he's within the upland review area. The proposed new foundation and deck will be 78 feet from the water's edge, which would be within the 100-foot review area.
Any discussion from the agents?
Just a couple questions if I can.
I didn't get that, but that's all right.
So he's going to
Late.
break up and pull out a piece of foundation, put a new piece of foundation in, and then drop a deck on top of it. Is what it looks like from the picture, right?
Correct.
So if you were to do this administratively, will you be out with Mr. Kidder to talk to him about what he would do while he's doing all that digging to protect, keep things out of the lake, or is that part of the deal?
It would be your standard language in the permit, and I brought the file from 26 Wheeler Drive, which was handled as a authorized agent approval, and it had the permit there was had all the general conditions, the standard
Okay.
conditions.
It says replacement structure, that piece from the chimney over is going to be replaced?
I believe it's just, it's a 12-foot section I think he's taking out and replacing it.
9 foot, right?
9 foot, I'm sorry, 9 foot.
He's taking it out?
That's what his proposal is, yes. I think it's block, I think it's concrete block, and I think he wants to pour concrete walls.
It's not really, I'm just trying to figure out what he's doing. It's not really our,
All right, so he's going to pour and build on top then,
yeah, he's going to build on top on the bottom, yeah.
and then he's going to drop a deck off of that.
He's taking it down and then putting it back up.
Yeah, so he's got to take that all out.
I think he's adding also 3 feet to it. I think the existing structure is 9,
9, he's going to add 3.
and he's
right?
going to add it, I think it's to 12, that's where the 12 came from.
So he's going to be digging about 50 or 70 feet from the lake, right?
No, when it's all said and done, the new addition is, to the front of the deck is 78 feet to the shore.
Oh, okay.
You see that on the second
15.
plan there.
78.
None of the new work is within 78 feet of the
He's close.
shoreline.
So you say there's other, there have been other projects out there that have put decks on the back or actually added on to houses, and which is, you mentioned 26?
Correct. 26 was just a year ago. It was a similar application.
Built a structure and then built a deck on it?
Yep, it was the request permit to replace existing sunroom and deck with a permanent 538 square foot addition to the back of existing residential house in a regulated upland review area.
We did that administratively, huh? Okay.
Was that within 100 feet of the lake, or,
It was, yeah, within the upland review area, correct.
okay, so this is not within the 100 feet, and that's why we're reviewing it now?
No, it is within the 100 feet. You'll be within 78 feet. And at the
We're
time,
at number 26.
26 was within the 100 feet, correct.
Okay.
Yeah, otherwise it
So this, the same type of condition where they had, that one was done administratively, so.
It was. And again, I didn't, not having the history of what was going on, when the application came in, I didn't know, how to handle it, so I took it as a DPN.
Okay.
So that we could have this discussion, and then I would know from here on, if, in the future, do you want to make this a wetlands application, or do you want to handle them, have me handle them administratively?
So what are the standard conditions that you have for, are they the same standard conditions?
Mm-hmm. Yep, the same 17 items. Sorry, 16. 14 items.
Because here's kind of where I'm thinking. If he was just building a deck on the back and to poke a couple holes in the ground and put in some sonotubes and put up a deck, that's pretty easy. He's actually going to dig out, break up a piece of foundation. He's going to be trucking that out somewhere on the side of his property. I don't know how the hell he's going to get on the side of his property with a wheelbarrow, probably. That little 12-foot opening. And then he's going to be building all within the upland review area, which is, right on the lake. So it seems fairly significant piece of work.
It is, but as well as this application, he's also has to get planning approval as well as a flood certificate, and there's other applications out there that are going to add other conditions possibly, and there'll be this isn't the only agency that's going to be looking at this project. There'll be others who are going to
Doesn't
be weighing in on this.
seem like he's very, he's not a builder. He's got 300-pound concrete, that. It should be
I don't
3,000.
think, these by no means are building,
Yeah,
building permit drawings or applications. This was for this purpose, which was just to show how he would be in relationship to the shoreline.
if we approved this, would he still have to get a building permit?
Oh,
anyway?
absolutely, and he has to go through planning and zoning. He has to go
Oh.
get a
That's not in our scope anyway, but
No, here's what I'm worried about. I'm just worried that he's not going to have the right guidance to be able to know to put up any protection, any hay bales, anything while he's doing the project out
Well,
there.
I think that the base our authorized agent approval would have those conditions in there.
And if you're telling me that you're going to be out there actually helping, not helping, but consulting a little bit and saying, don't forget you need to do this, that, and the
Yeah.
other thing,
Well, I think that that's.
I don't feel so bad about it, but I'm worried that he goes off and does this by himself, and I've got a lake sitting 78 feet away or 80 feet away, that I'm going to start seeing a lot of sediment rolling down there and so forth, so.
I think
guess
that's
that's my only concern.
very well addressed in the, prior to start conditions, the items he has to be addressed.
I don't know, what do you guys think?
Is there something here that shows what the slope is on the 78 feet towards the shore?
There isn't, but I know from my research, it's very flat.
Very flat.
Very flat.
Joe?
Which lake where is this?
188.6.
Is this up behind the Shaker Pines? Oh, Shaker
It's
Pines
Shaker,
Fire
yeah,
Plant?
it's Shaker,
Is this? Okay.
Shaker Pines, yeah.
Any further discussion? Do you like to make a motion to have it go to just administrative approval, or if it needs to go to the Inland Wetlands Watercourse Agency for approval?
Hold on.
Let's see if there's any slope at all.
It typically does. Most of those, I've been up in those neighborhoods, most of them will slope a little bit from the road and then down, like they typically do to a lake. The yard is probably fairly flat, but all the water's running downhill down.
He's got the same slope in the front as in back.
Yeah.
marked down here.
Look at the
but-
grade. I guess this is maybe his grade line here?
This line?
No,
No?
no. See this here?
It says existing
Got
footing.
188.6 here, from here, and he's got 188.6 on the front.
Yeah.
Those are the elevations for first
I don't
floor.
think
That's,
that's
that's the first floor elevations.
Yeah, those are just the first floor elevation, so I don't know what the piece of property looks like.
I don't know what that is.
Is it,
12-foot sonotube, concrete posts. Or maybe he's gonna put them in here too.
Yeah, see, I think we have a lot of questions.
I think we could move to ask for a better
Right.
rendition of what the actual conditions are with the slopes and with what the actual work that would be done, other than, I mean, he seems to know what he wants to have done, but it's not an architectural design here or any type of actual professional evaluation of what the work would be done. So,
I'd like to have just an opportunity. Is there a rush on this at all?
No,
No,
but
just- okay.
I do, again, because I brought this to the agency as a
Well, I think you
determination
should have.
of permit need, then I think we should determine that. Does it need to be, again, you know, a full application, or do you want to just have discussion with me in guiding me in doing the agency approval, agent approval?
Since this just came in tonight, I'd like to get out and take a look at the just do a quick
Okay.
look at the property, if you don't mind,
Yeah. Yeah,
I think
just see
those,
what-
it has time.
there,
right?
and there, and there are sonotubes.
Really?
I think so. Seems like it. That's
be.
not the grade, because he's got the grade of 186 here, and 186
What
in
is
the
this
First floor
for?
elevation is
Yeah,
186.
yeah, and then he,
Yeah, I'd like to take a look, and if 2 weeks isn't too much, or we're not putting you or him in any kind of a bind, I'd like to take a look and then come back and we can figure this out in 2 weeks. Is that reasonable?
I agree.
Do those areas, I have a question for those that have lived here all their lives. Do they have associations back there?
You do.
They
Okay,
must.
because a lot of associations, like when I lived on the beach association was, there's certain months you don't do construction.
Oh, I'm sure, I bet.
yeah.
So I don't know whether the lake association is the same way.
Yeah, and I don't know who that is.
Do they
either.
need to do the work
Yeah,
now and
yeah.
can't do it in the summer?
Well, I mean, it's 2 weeks, so 2 weeks isn't, I don't think it's going to make or break anything, and I believe we all have some questions. I mean, Roby brought up about the concrete and everything else, so I think I'd like to just hear a little more
You know,
about it.
Again, the application is for what I described as, what he described in his application as removing existing 9 feet of foundation, adding 12 feet, and an additional deck. Yeah, I see you did see there's something going on down here by the lake. I'm not sure if that was something that he's proposing, but that's not part of the application. That
this
wasn't
word is?
presented to the application. So all the activity is,
Sonotubes, but
But
it
what's
goes
after that?
across.
What's that word after the concrete
Posts.
posts? Okay.
I'd just like to take a quick look. If it's a fairly flat property and doesn't look like it's an issue, I'd be
42
very
inches
happy with you
below
managing
grade.
and handling it.
Okay.
Because I'm sure he'd be coming to you for guidance anyway. And then
Sounds good.
I would feel pretty comfortable that with your guidance and the conditions, we're in good shape and we're doing our job protecting the lake. If there's more than that, if there tends to be slope on some of the properties there is, then I'd be looking for more of a wetlands application so we could sit and actually talk to them about what our concerns are.
okay.
Could that be a boat dock down on the bottom of the?
It could be.
Again, I don't think that's part of the
Yeah,
application.
I think we need a little more detail on that.
Yeah, we'll go I'd like to take a ride out and take a look at it. It's a nice part of town.
Okay.
Well,
Then
the
we'll-
houses, they did a lot of work to down there. It looks good.
They're doing a nice job down there, yeah. No, I think you were right by bringing it here. So if you were wondering, I think it's a good idea, at least to let us have a chance to talk about it.
Yeah.
Okay, so a motion won't be made in order, the motion will be to review after further information?
Yeah, we just table it, I guess. That means it's,
We'll table DPN number 2012-02, 22 Thomas Kidder. Second to table the motion? First, actually, it should be first then second, sorry. I knew it is.
This was just an application coming in, right, new application, so this is, does DPN actually mean we needed to take some kind of action on it? Is that,
that
it probably
is-
does, though.
Yeah,
Okay.
and the, again, the application is, do you
Familiar.
want it to be a full application, or is it something we need to we can discuss, and then
Okay.
do you see it going as something in the future? Yeah, and it's more for me too as well, because when I see something like this in the future, I need to know just
What we're looking for.
what you're looking for.
Yeah, and especially around a lake like that, I think we'd want to take extra care if I'd rather err on the side of doing it, you know.
If I stop by tomorrow, could you leave with Barbara, I never got that in my packet.
Oh, you didn't, it was in the packet, it was tonight's.
Everything was all together, nothing, I
In the
didn't get it.
folder.
Oh, okay, absolutely.
Just leave it with Barbara, I'll pick it up tomorrow.
Okay, cool. Great.
Correspondence, from the planning and zoning. Any questions in regards to that?
I'm sorry, but I think if you did make a motion, you have to make a vote.
Oh, a motion to table.
Enable, get the table. Is that-
Thank you.
I think that's,
Okay, so we're gonna make it, does anybody have a motion to table DPN 2012-02-22 Thomas Kidler's request for the, whether or not we need to make a determination for the permit to replace a portion of the existing foundation?
You got it.
Second.
Seconded by Roby Staples. And a vote?
Vote to table? Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Everyone.
Unanimous.
Unanimous.
thank you.
Thank you. Other business? Any update on the official map for the new inland wetlands map?
No.
What are you doing with all your free time?
And the next meeting is on Tuesday, March 20th, 2012, at 7 PM in council chambers. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Meeting adjourned.